think we'll do it after the agenda. Yes.
Oh, yep.
Awesome.
Awesome. Over to you, Sandhya and Suvarsha. Go ahead.
Hi everyone. So happy that all of you could make it on a Saturday and listen to some of like our career journeys and generally product management itself. It's been something that I've been doing like the last 7 years, and there's just so much to learn in this field, and it's a continuous, ever evolving way. So I think that just makes it all the more interesting to be here. And yeah, just to get started with all the Ghibli craze that's going in, and being like a crazy Ghibli fan myself, I just did like okay, all the main poster that we had. This is the Ghibli version. I think what was interesting is it identified that we are Indian, and it didn't, and it just did the whole stereotype of how an Indian is supposed to look. I think my grandmom would definitely appreciate this. I think she's always been asking me to put that bindi, and yeah, and I think this ChatGPT definitely agrees with her. And cool. I think so. This is just to give an initial break, like okay, where the industry is headed and how simple it is for us to just start doing things. And yeah, and I think so. We can move on to the agenda. Um, Suvarsha, do you want to go through?
Yep. So we'll start with Sandhya and my journeys. You'll see that we did meet somewhere in between. Um, so we'll talk through our personal journeys just in case like you are on a personal journey that's similar to us, then it'll be helpful for you to choose your mentors and schedule your sessions accordingly through Vahati. We'll go through a role overview and talk about what product management is in general and take any questions that you might have on the way. We'll also look at types of PMs that Sandhya and I have been looking at that are up and coming in this market and how you could basically look at building your niche out of the types that are presented. We'll also talk about pros and cons of being a PM for anyone who wants to break into PM or are in their early careers, just to give a heads up on what's coming. We'll talk about career transition. If I've heard one of you were on a program management role looking to move to product, so um, we'll just look at different ways you could do that. And in the end, we'll talk about industry insights. These are things that Sandhya and I have gathered um, based on our work currently and just navigating the job market.
Yeah.
I love you're covering, you're kind of like starting with the personal journey, and not just that, you also have sort of like packed in what are the different types of PMs, like how you could build your niche, and career transition. I think like a lot of us are here, like curious about it, want to learn, want to figure out like how does this whole transition work if someone's interested. So thank you for that. Go ahead, Sandhya.
Yeah, we could also do that poll here just to understand what people are looking for. It's the way we understood like a lot of the people, we just went through some of the people who registered. So we had like about 80 people who registered for this event.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think it looked like many of them were like in their mid careers, and it also showed in the initial poll that you shared.
Yeah.
But we would definitely love to understand a little more. And then, yeah, then tune, like as I talk about my journey, I can focus more there. And so, yeah, both Suvarsha and I can do that. Uh,
Uh, let's take that poll. I'm going to, I think we don't probably need to present, but sure. So let's go through the quick question we have. For those of us who joined recently, please join us at menti.com. Use the code 42184707. And we have a question ongoing. I think a lot of people already have responded. That's great.
yeah. Should we give like a few seconds if anyone else if you guys want to respond? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. A huge majority is breaking into product management, learning about that. Then some folks looking for a job change in product management, early career PMs aiming to advance,
trying to identify my niche in product management, I am guessing that this is someone who already is a product manager and now sort of like looking into specializing into a niche and other. Okay, if it's other, don't worry, we have another slide for you right after this. And I know someone joined us recently. So for whoever who joined us just now, please join us at menti.com. We have some fun icebreakers going in just to get a sense of the room around here, and use the code 42184707. And know that this call is being recorded. We will also share it on social media or YouTube for others to learn off of the discussion going on here. If you have any questions that you want to bring up post the recording, at some point towards the end of the session, we'll stop the call, we'll stop the recording. And at that point as well, you can chime in and feel free to ask any questions you have. Okay, so breaking into product management seems to be like the winner here, right? And looking for a job change in product management, both kind of like go hand in hand. I'm gonna take another quick poll. So for, I know one person mentioned other reasons, or even someone who said breaking into product management. Try to sort of like provide a little bit of information here about when you say breaking, is it from masters to PM, or is it from being a software professional today to PM, or is it being a program manager to PM, as someone mentioned here before? Again, this will give Sandhya and Sudarsha a good read on the room. Product owner, early PM, early product manager to product manager, or maybe it's program. Breaking into PM for a master student. In service industry in a team that's building a product for the first time. Okay. And heading the service management of the product. Okay. Technical program manager to product management. A software developer wanting to break into pathfinding and product building. I love writing software, working with my customers. Technical consultant to data product manager. Senior data scientist to AI data product manager. A master student who has experience in sales and solutioning, and I'm now looking forward to get into product management. Nice. I do see a pattern of like a lot of data folks, or like, technical or like, solutioning folks also wanting to break into PM. Data and product roles in India, then MBA in US, now looking for product roles in US, and product management with 3 years of career break and 2 years of prior experience as a QA. That's actually great. Like, I think we have sort of like a spectrum of folks, right? Coming from different backgrounds, and then sharing what is the reason, or like, how they are looking into transitioning. And one thing we've observed common across through the previous events we ran with Bharati as well is, it's no secret that recently the job market has been kind of like challenging, right? Like, no matter whether it's for master student, or no matter whether someone's looking for transitioning into opportunities. So I think it definitely helps connecting with people who've already recently done that, and know, right, what it's like. Also having mentors along the way to be able to assess where you're at in your journey. I'm gonna go over back to the presentation now that we have a good read on where we're coming from.
Thank you so much for sharing, everyone. That definitely gives us a good thing. And and I've been in data product management for, I think, almost all my most of my career. So yeah, hopefully some of the tips I share are going to be useful, and we can definitely talk about how we can elaborate on your like one-on-one story later. Um, cool. So I think my journey itself started off as a front-end engineer. So this is right out of my undergrad. So the first job, you don't really have other things, so it's just going with the flow. But inside, this was not something that was like very something that I was enjoying. So this was even back in 2012, 2013 when data science was just emerging, and they were building a data science a team inside Verizon. And I just as I had like a few of my alums in that team, and then reached out to them and figured out like how can I improve my data skills, and did like those internal navigation with inside like going into the data science field itself. So I was there for like a couple of years, 2 years. But again, the enterprise, it was very interesting to learn because at that time, data science was not as established as now. It was more like a cottage industry where I had to be both the PM and the data scientist and the solution engineer. So I had to do the whole thing end to end, and it was about understanding that journey was like pretty interesting, like that early on in the career, where you had to understand the business, you had to understand the data, you had to also do the whole how do you deliver in that setting. And but again, the enterprise definitely takes longer time to deliver. So I just wanted to do like how does it feel like to work in a startup. So I went and I went on I to and this is some other alums that I was just meeting. Like I used to go to like a few meetups, startup meetups, back in I think Chennai, Bangalore, that used to happen. And yeah, and I think so I found this startup where I think the mission of this startup was to make sure that people feel like they belong in their workplace, which was kind of like what it was. And that was something that definitely that resonated, and they needed someone to just come in and look at their data. So I just moved in as like an analytics lead and setting up the entire analytics platform for them. But yeah, but I think there was definitely some gaps that I was feeling, that I wanted to step up. Like, how do you think about like being that think more strategically, like because when you're in a startup, you're closer to the top management. It's like a smaller team. So I think we were probably 50 people at that time when I joined. And yeah, so I think so ISB happened at that time. So I was like, okay, this could be like a good break in my career, and also somewhere where I can learn how to think a little more strategically. So this is also where I met Suvarsha. So we both were classmates from ISB, and yeah, and I think that was like a power-packed 1 year. But even going into ISB, like one thing that really helped me to make sure that I got into the product management field was understanding the different career paths even before moving in, and talking to a lot of the alums before I moved in. So there are so consulting. So if you're in an MBA college, you will probably just hear consulting, consulting, consulting. Everybody wants to get into consulting, and that's where people make all the big bucks. The whole MBB, the McKinsey, BCG, Bain craze that keeps going on. But yeah, I spoke to a few people who did get into this McKinsey, BCG, Bain, and no, and yeah, you need to understand the mindset that really works in these. So there are some who thrived in these places, and there are many who just drop out after 2 years and come back to say tech or somewhere. So when I spoke to both the types of people, I felt like it's not something that I would be very good at, or the McKinsey, the way the MBB works. It's not something that I might just think that's like an over competitive field. I mean, I'm ambitious, but at the same time, I don't think that excessive competition and that cutthroat thing is not for me. What I really wanted was to build something that makes some change out there, right? So that was kind of what was more inspiring for me. So that was when, even before moving, I had a sense that okay, this is something, product management feels like a good career path. Maybe MBA is not always required for getting into product management, but MBA does open up that mindset into like thinking about what are the different careers out there and how does the whole business world work, because product management is supposed to be the bridge between the business and the tech. I had like some data, some tech skills, but how can I build that bridge? So that was like one thing that opened up for me. And yeah, I think Suvarsha and I, we used to also, I was like doing the business technology club out there. So I think so we were doing like a lot of PM prep, talking to a lot more PMs, like a lot more alums who were doing well. So ISB was one of the first schools which created a lot of product managers back in India. So that entire product management function. So we had like a lot of alums that we could learn from. And yeah, I think so that was very helpful to understanding the immediate industry. But also I understood that so when I talked to like a super senior alum versus someone who is just out there, it was more easier to connect with people who are just out there, because career is a long journey at the end of the day. So it's always like who have traversed say the next 4 years. So it's always nice to talk to them and immediately figure out what is this, and so have that long term perspective speaking to senior people, but also talk to that people in the 3-4 years. This one. So yeah, so I think post this one, I got into Reliance. So product management was something that was running throughout my ISB, like along with the MBA prep. That was something that I was continuing to prepare for, like me, Suvarsha, like bunch of other folks in our batch. And yeah, and I think when I moved to Reliance Jio, what was very interesting was like the whole consumer product management was what made product management cool in a way, right? So, but that didn't really happen to me because I had a data background. Naturally, I started getting projects in data platform, but eventually, when I reflected, I talked to a few people and thought back about it. I realized that there are not many others who have this data niche, but that was something that I could potentially start that I had, and that was kind of why there was nobody else who was taking up these projects or who had that background to take up. So that was like one thing that I could connect with. And again, Reliance Jio was a huge company back in India. So I think that startup bug keeps coming back to me. So I moved to this early ally startup. I moved as the 20th employee there. It was like one of the most exponential learning journeys in my life over there. So I did like a bunch of things, like how do you have setting up the growth team there, setting up the whole analytics, data science. Like I was part data scientist, part PM, part growth PM. So like doing like a lot of exploration out there. And yeah, it was just a year, but I think the learning was probably worth 4 to 5 years of my career, like in that 1 year. You kind of, I think you start measuring, if you're in a startup, you start measuring your learning in dog years and not really in your own this year. I mean, yeah, not really traditional the number of years. So that was great. And then some of life happened. So I was also, I mean, I think I was like about 29, 30 around that time. And then I wanted to, yeah, I think personal life, I was getting married and also moving. I wanted to move to the US. And this was, so Santa Clara, so this was one way to come in. So a lot of the visa stuff didn't work out through the startup. They were still very small. So yeah, so I think I moved here like as a master student for so it's just like a 1 year course that I took up, and yeah, so by the end of the course I was able to get into this company called Foursquare, and because it was I had data science background, I got into the ML initiatives overall of how we were able to setting up all the overall machine learning initiatives at Foursquare. It was like super, yeah, it was definitely interesting to learn the new applications that was happening. Yeah, so I think that also was like a tough job market that I was navigating, but somehow things worked out. Like before I graduated, I was able to have a job. Like the last 3 months out from CPT, I could start working and stuff. And yeah, and then through Foursquare, but again the company was not doing so great financially, so there were layoffs. So I had to take like a few 3-4 months break preparing for like the next role, and I was able to land a role in a few months. But again, visa stuff did happen, and I had to take like a little bit. Even I got the role in PayPal and like a couple of other companies that I was interviewing, but I mean, which was like, this was something that was definitely very interesting because it was in the AI/ML field. But again, I did navigate that, and finally, I think right now, the at least the visa stuff is sorted. But and I was able to start again in PayPal. Like they were also kind enough to wait for a few months. So yeah, so I think it's this trajectory is something you can also see on my LinkedIn profile, but there is a lot of backstory that goes in, which I did want to share the personal side of what happened and how the industry is working. And I know a lot of you also might be navigating certain uh, ups and downs. So it's never a linear line. It's going to be ups and downs. And yeah, I think that's something that I'm learning to cope with, being resilient throughout. And yeah, hopefully some of these insights help you to.
Hey,
Uh,
Sandhya. So I know like we've known each other ever since you decided to essentially create your impact through your product skills, and you're so great at that. Like even with Bhati, I myself did not know the entirety of your story like up until now. So first of all, this is great, and I'm sure people may have questions. So keep them coming in the chat. In 15 more minutes, we will kind of like take a break and go through those questions for Sandhya, Suvarsha both. And also great to know that like I know you navigated your immigration challenges all throughout. For folks on the call, just to give an idea of how she actually came back and pulled it around was while she was waiting on all that frustrating like visa wait, she decided that she wanted to use that time for doing something like more effective and not just sit and wait and watch. And then she started volunteering with Bharati. Then from volunteering, she became a director at Bharati, and now she's a regional ambassador. So at all points of time, whether you're waiting on a role or whether you're going through your visa navigation, or whether you are a student right now and thinking like, is there something that could happen? Um, like understand that even with so many years of experience, she still had to go through some of these frustrations, right? It never stops. But at this point, she's already kind of like prepared, and she is using all of that to then build something more impactful, even if it's kind of like a different venture and a nonprofit volunteering. She's using that all together. So thank you.
yeah, happy to share. And yeah, over to you, Suvarsha. I know had like I mean, so we have known each other for the last few years, and she's had like a pretty interesting journey too. Yeah, over to her.
Yeah, I think Sandhya, thankfully, since you went first, a lot of YMBA things got covered. But yeah, I'll start. I started off as a full stack engineer, but my role at Oracle was a combination of consultant come engineer. So it was working on a layer of the product that wasn't core, but then basically tweaking that layer to different enterprises such as banks that came to Oracle for their solution, and also going on site and kind of implementing the solution and learning from what the client's needs are, right? So there was a little bit of travel and a cross between a consultant come engineer role. So this role kind of helped me understand two things. One that Sandhya briefly touched upon, that consulting wasn't for me for the reasons she spoke about. But other reason that really stuck to me was I didn't know what happened with that client and the success of that client after our collaboration was done, right? So we did implement a couple of things we thought was useful for them, but did that really work? That I was blind spotted there, and that's a question that really nagged me a lot, and kind of helped me
Without
navigate.
responsibility, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, delivering without the responsibility, actually.
yes, yep, exactly. It's kind of helped me navigate through what I do not want to do. Let me put it that way, because this is early in my career, so I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. What it also opened up is my ability to interact with the clients directly and kind of understand what their problems are. And that might be understanding generally an empathetic person and building something and seeing it go live and seeing it be used was very fulfilling for me, even though it was one large enterprise that I was working on. And that's when, like, I connected with a product manager within Oracle, and I spoke to a lot of product managers within Oracle and product managers out of B School. I was in based out of Hyderabad, so I did talk to a lot of ISB alums back then as well, similar to what Sandhya did, right? So end of, I think, 3 years into Oracle, kind of wanted to uh, take the product management path, and big area that I was lacking at was business acumen and um, just learning from similar minded people, right? So when I was choosing what I wanted to do, MBA is of course a big option, and it was kind of a pathway, I would say, that many people were taking back then in 2016 to land product management roles. So for those two reasons, picked MBA as a next step for myself, um, for the huge network that I'll tap into, and also learn a lot about business, right? Um, so coming into ISB, I was very sure of what I want to do. Because I didn't have a lot of PM experience and it was a challenging role, I was okay with taking up any program manager or product manager role or a product owner role that would come about after B School, and then thought of navigating from there. So I did miss, um, because I was focused, I did miss a lot of the consulting buzz that Sandhya briefly touched upon. So post, I think during ISB landed 3 PM roles, and the way I went about choosing which one was looking at the size and stability of the company. Within that, when I was looking at the company, I also looked at the leadership to understand where the leadership team basically came from. The second one that I looked at was if the company itself is heavily relying on its services division or its product division, because all the three that I got were kind of in the B2B enterprise space. So that's another thing that I looked at, apart from the other two that I spoke about. So chose Zenoti as my next step. Zenoti was a Series B startup. It was a vertical SaaS B2B based startup. We'll touch upon what that actually means in the further slides. Zenoti was catering to all clients in the wellness space. So when I say wellness, it is any spa or salon or a pet center or even a gym, right? All of that falls under the wellness space. Within Zenoti, I had a lot of internal transitions between different products, and that's something that we'll talk about in a bit also. But this is where, like, my learning, I would say, was very steep and measured in dog years. Very well put, Sandhya. I did get a chance, because it was Series B, I did get a chance of launching 2 0-1 product, which was a great experience for me. And I could also kind of work on the tech side and the UX experience side along with 0-1 products. So it was a combination of all of those learnings for me at Zenoti. This kind of laid the road for me for my next journey, where at Freshworks I was taking care of a full, a complete product end to end. It was an application tracking system. It was again like a startup within Freshworks. Moved there mainly because of the leadership. I really, really loved the leadership at Freshworks, and I was talking to them. Mentorship at some point in the career really gets very, very important, especially for someone within the company. Um, so moved to Freshworks, learned how to basically move from tactical thinking to a lot of strategic and long-term thinking. That's something that Freshworks gave me because I was managing a whole product unit, right? In 2023, similar to Sandhya, my husband decided to move to the US. So a lot of visa struggle. The best thing for me was to look at maybe studying in the US while looking at all the different programs that were available. I came across CMU's Masters in Product Innovation program, which was very different. It was an intersection between business, core engineering, and hardcore design. So it fell right into the product management bucket. And with the AI becoming a big boom and CMU also having a strong AI base in the college, I thought this would be a good fit for me. Through CMU, similar struggles, as Sandhya mentioned earlier, I did land a job before graduation, but we could talk about it if people have questions about how to go about figuring out jobs during their masters or soon after masters, right? Now, if you see my journey, it's always been B2B SaaS tech PM. And that's what kind of helped me run my next role at Techion, which was also a vertical B2B SaaS company. My profile fit perfectly for something they were looking for. I joined them to take up a B2B2C kind of PM role, which is exciting. And it was in the e-commerce space. And then during my journey here, I did do a bunch of networking in CMU, and I got a excellent opportunity from Amazon, which was super interesting. So I went ahead and interviewed with them, and currently working in the Amazon business product. I am taking care of one of the verticals. It's called Speed. So if you've ordered on Amazon, if you've seen options of same day delivery or next day delivery, that's something that I focus on at Amazon right now. That's about it.
That's super cool. So if we look at those options, what you're saying is essentially like Amazon wide, the team that or the org that focuses on all the different delivery options and presenting them at the time of like your checkout, right?
Yeah.
That's the one. Oh, that's amazing. Cool. Hey, thanks for sharing. So I also noticed, by the way, something key and subtle that not many people I see focus on these days. You mentioned you did a bunch of networking during your time at CMU. I definitely do want to like touch on that later in like through our session as well. A lot of the times, we've noticed that folks are, of course, like really busy and overwhelmed through their master's journeys or like even in our current jobs, right? And we tend to overlook the opportunities to network and learn before there comes a time to, right? So yeah, definitely worth touching on that. Thanks, Varsha, for sharing your journey. Quick time check. We are at 12:51. I think we can go over the role overview aspect. You both have laid out very beautifully, and then sort of like move into the next part of types of product management that you have. Let me know who's taking this over. Suvarsha. Yeah.
Sandhya.
Yeah, I'll do. And Suvarsha, please chime in.
Yeah.
Saying something. Yeah. So the typical role overview, how you think about a product pod itself, right? So it's usually a product manager, a product designer, engineering lead. So the product designer might or might not be there depending on the product. So if it's like an excessively technical product or if it's like an internal product, then mostly there is not a designer. But otherwise, there might be there would most likely be a designer for like a consumer facing or like any business facing. So you will have like a designer. But what do each person really core? What do they really do, right? So the product manager itself is responsible for the value and the viability of the business. And when I say what's the value and what's the viability, so you are responsible for understanding what is that, who's that, like the customer. So value comes from the customer point of view. Like, is what you're building something that will definitely make sense for the customer? Is it really solving like a pain point for the customer, right? And then, but at the same time, it has to be viable, because if you just build what every customer is asking, your business is not going to run. You also need to keep balancing that in your head. Like, are you doing cost savings for your business? Are you thinking about profitability? So these two becomes like the core thing that the PM becomes responsible for. But again, as you're doing like the value, you also need to translate it into a product. So the product manager is usually involved throughout the whole journey. So that's when the designer usually comes in. And so the designer is responsible for whether this is a usable product. So the initial, you do like the whole prototyping, and how from the value translation, how do you, for once you have done this value viability translation, so how can you make that into a usable product? And then you have like those prototypes, then engineering lead also comes in. Okay, is this even feasible to build? Otherwise you can have like all moonshot ideas, but it's definitely not something that can be delivered on the ground. Or if it is being delivered, like how can we think about like what should be the definite roadmap throughout this one? So that's kind of where the engineering lead comes in. So this is like a general picture of how a product gets delivered, and each one has like a core responsibility, but a lot of these kind of overlap. Like, say, the main person, the product manager, is definitely like the who delivers. Anytime a question about value viability comes, it has to be the PM. But the usability and the feasibility are something that you need to be cognizant of and also have that. So those will be like the parallel things that you have to continuously pair with. Yeah. So so that's like on a high level. And then the process of product discovery. So just now, since this session is about navigating product management itself, right? So how do you go about like doing the overall the product discovery process and the delivery? So these are the two essential things that a product manager does, right? So I think Suvarsha talked about earlier, like if you're a consultant, you probably just discover certain solutions, but you don't take the responsibility of delivering it. So this delivery piece is completely out for the consultant. Or you deliver and you're not really responsible for the consequences of what this product is building. But product manager has to be someone who understands that like really core, delivers it, and also continuously iterates on the feedback. So it's like a continuous cycle. Like it's a lot of building with more responsibility, and also like going with the overall what the customers need, what the business needs at that time, right? And I know there were questions about like how do you prepare for interviews. I'll just slightly touch upon it here, right? So so there are like, I think the biggest thing for a product manager is having that sense. You might have come across this in multiple places. The product sense is something that's like the biggest thing that a product manager probably needs to develop. And what really matters when you say product sense is it usually comes in the whole product discovery process, right? So you need to understand the customer, and then there is like, and at the same time the market and industry, that's something that you need to keep up with. And then the business, what's really happening in the business, and at the same time the product and the data knowledge itself. So these are like the continuous four pillars. Is this something you have a continuous sense of? So that is pretty much what really makes up that product sense, right? That keeps coming up. Like when someone says product sense, it's essentially a breakdown of these things. This is something that's like heavily tested during the interviews. Like you just some companies, they can just throw a random problem at you, and are you able to think from the customer's shoes? Do you have a sense of what the market and industry is? And do you know how the business itself is running? And then obviously so when I say product and data knowledge, it's like, okay, how is the product being used? Like, what is the product in the first place? Like, say you're a core technical person, then you would probably be very familiar with how like the whole DevOps cycle works, or like if you're a data scientist, you know the ML life cycle works. But if you're a PM, you need to understand how that thing. So when people say no code, but still you need to have like a deep sense of what the product is. And data is basically the whole usage metrics that goes along with the product itself. So yeah, so that is one of the key things that will also be tested in interviews, and that's a muscle that you continuously keep building over time, right? So as you go to more senior roles, it is like the viewpoint increases, so you start thinking a lot more strategically, but that's a journey of growth. You first start thinking from a small thing, and then eventually you're able to think for the overall from an organization point of view, right? So that's the discovery process, and then there is the delivery process, right? So once you discover right solutions and right solutions to build, that doesn't really guarantee that it's going to be a successful product out there in the market. And many experiments fail, and many people, I think they fail at thinking that, okay, so I think this was a quote from Steve Jobs or someone. So he thinks that there's like a 90% of the products. So people make the biggest mistake is that 90% of the work is done when you know what is the right solution to build, or if you have the right idea. But that's where the execution piece comes in, and that's basically the I think what he comes and tells is like idea to execution is like a completely different ball game in itself. I think I'm not getting the exact words, but it's the general sense that Steve Jobs was referring to. I think one of the best product managers of our, yeah, I think it was probably the end of an era for sure with him gone. But yeah, so I think so. This is then creating the successful products. I think coming back to the product delivery part, right? So you build, test, deploy. I think all the developers, data scientists, all the techies will probably, this is something that you here a heavy collaboration with the engineering team and obviously the design team if the designers are required. I've been a data product manager. I've usually not had a designer in my team. It's been a very close collaboration with the engineering lead and the machine learning lead in the company. But yeah, so how do you build, test, deploy solutions? And then there's like a lot of internal stakeholder management, like you work with marketing, legal, the platform, finance. There are like so many other people that, so everyone at the end of the day, you are the expert that they have to go to. So once you build that whole knowledge, right, that's once you have that product discovery knowledge, that's what gives people the trust that you will be able to deliver something. So they will continue to come and keep asking you like, what is this like the right thing? Are you doing like the right thing? So when I was a machine learning PM, so there are like legal used to keep coming and keep asking things like, okay, I had to build something about like ethnicity, or if I build a model based on ethnicity, based on geography, or based on financial this one. So at the end of the day, in the US, so there are like certain pockets which are more dominated by a certain race, and that used to sometimes come across as like the lower financial this one. So these are all like very sensitive things that legal will take care, and these are not, you're not supposed to have an algorithm that really speaks about like this ethnicity and being able to divide people based on that, right? Yes, so I think similar to what the GPT did earlier, it made us like in the whole ethnicity it did found your Indians and this is how Indians are supposed to dress. That sometimes that can be questioned legally. Yeah, and then yeah, I think then the whole alignment with the org strategy OKRs that becomes, so throughout the process there will be like a lot of inputs that keep coming in. There will be timelines that you have to meet, and then there are like certain strategies that might change based on how the business is changing that you have to be cognizant of. And also like the whole change management process. So in case there is like a major change that's happening in the organization, you also need to keep be cognizant about that. And here it's like a nice circle, but in reality it's like it's a flow of a river. It keeps going back and forth. So you need to continuously be doing product discovery, you need to be continuously doing product delivery. So there is like these two threads keep happening side by side, and there's like a overlap. yeah, it's a lot more messier in real life, but yeah, for the sake of ease of consumption, we put it in a nice round. I don't know, is it like a donut chat? I guess it's a donut chat. Yeah.
I just had a couple of things to touch upon, Sandhya, before we open it to questions. So, one thing is with the top tile of product designer itself, right? It's not only about working on a product that is not consumer facing or the user facing or a data product. In small startups, like for example, in my case itself, in Zenoti, I think the first year, most of the year, I did not have a designer. It was mainly due to designer attrition and um, lack of designers that we had, that I had to take up the responsibility of just using um, balsamic. Now it's not not used anymore, but back then I did use a lot of balsamic to mark out my design. And I think, like, as product managers, we shouldn't shy away from that, because it was such a beautiful thing that happened to me, even though it gave me a lot of additional work. My subsequent reviews with product designers, once they were in, were so quick and easy. And as a product manager, since you also have to influence other stakeholders that you're talking to, the knowledge that I had gathered in that 1 year due to deep research that I had done, because of playing this dual role, kind of gave me that opportunity to influence a designer when they came in. So I would say in startups, do not shy away from taking extra load on each of any of these areas that we are talking about. That was one. And with the product delivery itself, um, it's not just about, like, when we're comparing it with consulting, a few consulting firms now even take care of delivery metrics 1 year or 2 year down the line, right? But with product management, especially with when you're in a company for a long duration, in Zenoti and Freshworks, I was there for three years. I did sunset something that I had built in the first year. So it's also about learning continuously about what the users want, and taking off things that they probably don't want anymore, right? So that's the aspect that you'll have to bring in as well with delivery. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about was internal stakeholder management. This is a very, very important piece, especially when you're growing. From an early senior PM to a seasoned senior PM, I saw a shift in how I was thinking with stakeholder management. I did think of how sales is exactly pushing my product to the new segment or the old segment, and kind of went in to tweak that as well. Though it's not part of your JD, but that's something that you'll have to do to ensure the right messaging is going out. I did build a lot of sales decks along with sales folks, and that kind of shows the maturity in thinking, and like we spoke about earlier, just larger pool of responsibility in startups.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we want to take questions now, or we can do it after we go through the types of roles?
Yeah, maybe we can go through, because one of the questions also actually would be answered in that next immediate. So let me go next. Wait, how do I do this? Perfect.
Yeah.
So I can maybe start with the verticals, and there you can take the horizontal, because you have a lot of horizontal experience as well. So with types of product management, again, we've laid out it in this fashion, but again, in real life, if you see, there'll be a lot of mix and matches of this. If you look at mine and Sandhya's niche itself, there'll be a mix and match. But for easy understanding, this is how you can like broadly think of when you're thinking of forming a niche or for yourself. So vertical, under vertical, we have industry specific. You might be a program manager or an engineer who has been working in a industry for a long time. And because you've been in that industry, you've also learned a lot about that industry. Now, one of the things for a product manager is also like learning the market and their domain end to end, because that kind of gives them an idea of what the users want, where is there a lack of solutions, and where you can make their lives better, right? So these ideas are also seeded in other roles. If you're an engineer, you'll have that idea. If you're a program manager or a customer success, account managers, if you're a salesperson, you'll definitely have that a lot more than others. So it can be healthcare, education, fintech is a big one that's coming up, e-commerce, etc. Right? These are a few that we've written. Techion was in automobiles. That's another industry specific product managers management that you can think of. Now, if you're transitioning or if you want to transition into PM from another role, this is a point that you could deeply think about. Which vertical or industry are you very well versed of, and you can show that if there's an opening in a similar industry in the market, right? That's number one. And for me, in Zenoti, my industry has been very vertical, which is wellness, and in Techion, it's been automobile. The rest of the two is very horizontal, but those are two specific examples.
Freshworks was also like more like a management thing. It could be for many companies. Was your
Yes. Yeah, Freshworks is very horizontal, and that's their model, right? SMB mid-market customers to any industry.
Yeah.
So with respect to company size itself, a lot of my work has been enterprise, SMB, mid-market, and enterprise again. But what we mean by this is how many number of customers are you kind of targeting? If your product is catering to only 100 employee size customers, or 100 to 500, or 500 to 1000, or like even Fortune 500, like the big ServiceNows of today, right? ServiceNow or Salesforce. So that's something that you can think about. Another way of thinking about company size is also if you've specifically worked on a product, building a product from scratch, right? That's one way of thinking about it. If the product has gained some momentum and has acquired, let's say, 10% of the market you were targeting, then you're at the 1 to 100% stage of the product, which means you entered the company when the product was already built and was adopted. Now you're thinking of how to move the needle from X employees to 10x employees, right? That's another way of thinking of how you could form your niche or type. The last bucket that we have here is the types of customers you yourself are serving. So I largely worked in B2B, which means the users of my product have bought this product for a specific reason and are using it and are aware of why they're using it, right? But not all users of the product are buyers. That is, for example, the application tracking system or a recruitment product that I worked on, the purchaser would be a CHRO or the CEO of the company, but my regular users would be a recruiter or an interviewer, right? So not all buyers are purchasers, but they do weigh into the purchase decision. Whereas B2C, you really have to kind of target to every user that's using your product because they need to really understand the value of it. So these are the vertical kind of distinctions that you can think about while thinking of your product type. Sandhya, over to you. If you want to add something here and take over horizontal, you could go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Why I put like company size specific is like because I've met PMs and I've also been a PM who's like very good at doing that 0 to 1 thing, but they might not be the best at scaling either. I mean, probably because they're not interested in scaling and it's not as exciting for them as doing a 0 to 1 kind of product. But there are some people who really know how to work the enterprise. Some people I've met, like they know how to work the enterprise, how to find, navigate through that, and deliver really successful products in that environment, right? So basically, how the environment itself matters for in the delivery cycle, and that is kind of why this company size specific was something that we brought about. And and I think for the B2C, B2B also, so B2B, I think the Ally was a product for OKR tools, and then it was always the HR or the someone from the ops org who finalized that they want to buy this OKR tool, and a lot of the employees inside the company hated it. To be honest, so they were like, "Hey, are you giving me one more tool to where I have to go and input what work I'm doing or something around that?" So basically, that when I did like a lot of the customer interviews, the person who purchased loved the product because they were getting that whole org level view, but the person who was using it may or may not love the product, right? But the company still gets revenue. The company still gets great feedback when in all this one. So these are all like certain nuances that is different from B2B space to B2C space. Yeah. So that was in the vertical front and also horizontal. Yeah, I think some the thread across all my this one, if you had seen, was like starting off from a data scientist to think currently being like the PM in AI. It has mostly been data. So I think the initial company Verizon was like in the enterprise B2B. Then I moved to Belong was also B2B, but there was like Geo was a B2C company. Foursquare was kind of B2B2C. Where there was both the B2B2C and B2B side. So that didn't really matter. But what they were really needing me for in that particular role was the fact that I had a sense of like how to think about data, how to think about machine learning, how to make sure that we operationalize this machine learning initiatives in production. And similarly, I think so. SaaS, software as a service, is like a different way you think about SaaS versus the platform as a service or infrastructure as a service. So there are companies which do platform as a service specifically. But these are like certain kind of mindsets that you build and you're delivering. That's the horizontal side of things. So especially for developers or like anyone in the technology side, like if you have like a really good sense of how a developer should work or how a designer should work or how a data scientist should work, I think these are definitely like great horizontal fields that you can explore. And similarly for the platform PMs, that is, I think, one more very interesting space because this is again horizontal across many companies need to build those platforms. And if you're in the platform PM, it's like horizontal. You can cut across industries, you can cut across different kinds of customers. So everybody is actually building a platform probably similar. So everybody wants to deliver and deploy software very quickly. Everybody wants to run a seamless data science org. So all these are like things that you could potentially as a platform PM that you would be doing, and not necessarily technology itself. It's a little different from the technology, and then the growth is a completely different. It's a new function that started coming up only like last I think 6 years. It's been very pronounced thing. So earlier, it sometimes used to come to the person who's managing the product, but later on, I think people started realizing this can be a function of its own. I think product management is also continuously evolving, and they are primarily only responsible for how you acquire customers and how you retain customers, how you engage them, and how you retain them. and this particular role has a very different kind of thinking where there'll be a lot of experiments that you have to keep doing, and 80% of the experiments will probably fail. So continuous experiments, what's working with the customer, what's not working, and how can I keep thinking about revenue. This is thinking about things from a very business focused, and ensuring that this is always like an add-on layer on top of core product management. So there's core product management who's building the actual feature. This growth layer is something that's horizontal, and this can be that can cut across industries again. It can cut across verticals on how you acquire, retain, engage customers. Maybe it is similar only in B2C versus B2B. So most of B2B customers operate a certain way and B2C operate a certain way, and growth tactics in each will change. But otherwise, it's a horizontal field. And then the last one is like the outbound. This is not a very common role. In many companies, it's called product marketing. But there are companies like ServiceNow, NVIDIA, who have like something called an outbound PM, who are basically just thinking about what is the position of this product in the market, what is the competitive standing, what's the value differentiation that you can potentially think about. So these are like very specific in certain companies, but in most of the companies right now today it's called product marketing itself, so product marketing function. So this can be one more horizontal thing that is there. Yeah, I think all in all, there are like so many ways you can divide things and think about it, and you can pick and choose, right? It's not just one thing that you build a niche in. You can tell that I'm very good at, say, healthcare, and I'm very good at doing like a SaaS product for healthcare, and you have like a very clear niche for yourself where you can keep growing at a much faster pace compared to your peers in that particular niche that you choose. And similarly, if you're very good at growth, again, you keep going to keep becoming like the chief growth officer, achieve those things that if you pick that particular horizontal, and if you say that you're specializing in acquisition, there's probably like even more a deeper level of niche that you can build. Uh, yeah, I think for me, it's been primarily around like the whole AI/ML. Right now, for the first time, I'm actually being a platform PM because I was a data scientist. They were like, okay, this person can actually understand what the life cycle looks like, and we want someone who gets that. So at the end of the day, it's about what type of customer problems that you have, like a very deep sense of that you're able to really understand the core of that problem, right? Which is what they are going to hire you for at any point in time. And yeah, I think that is probably the essence and how you can mix and match these things to build a niche for yourself. Uh, yeah.
I think this slide particularly of ties it all together. Thinking about, I know we had some question earlier about like building your niche, what type of niche. This is what you meant now, I understand. And do we have a specific poll again for this one? Like, I know you had another question for people to think about, like on the call.
We did have a poll of how many people know their niche and trying to figure out their niche.
Yep. Maybe we could, yeah, maybe now is a good time. Yeah. And then we can take a few questions as well. I know we had some on the chat. So so folks on the call who are yet to join us on the Mentimeter, we are taking quick anonymous polls, and this is a fun way and also like a quick way of understanding, where we lie in the spectrum. Join us at menti.com with the code 42184707 if you haven't already. And for those of us who are already in the Menti session, this is a quick question. Now that we just talked about the product management niche, we want to reflect on it and think where we are in that spectrum. My bad. I put I put the first two options the same. You can ignore that and just select one. So it looks like we have a couple of folks on the call mentioning they have established a niche. I found my niche and I'm focusing on deepening the expertise in this area. That's great. So at which point you're probably looking at like what's the right navigation? Who do I work with? What is the mentoring, or like what are the right resources to grow deeper into that? We also have a few folks talking about exploring different areas. Actually, majority of the folks, since they've chosen one or the other, exploring different areas, still exploring various product management roles to understand where I best fit. Absolutely, and I think there are multiple dimensions to what Suvarsha and Sandhya both of you spoke about, right? Like there is this part of like what skill set. There's also the part of what is the relevant experience that already exists. And I guess a fun and also like a very productive part would be looking at our own resume or like career portfolio and looking through the patterns of finding out where that will lie.
Yeah, or for me, like at one point, it was also about looking at where the company that I'm currently in is investing so I could grow quickly. So that could be another area. But for all of this, I would say what has helped me a lot is to kind of talk to industry specialists and my mentors within and outside the company to kind of have a sounding board and yeah, get their feedback as well.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's also about like at many points being open-minded. So if you build a niche that uh, you should be able to be flexible within that, like maybe not really hold on to this is just going to work for me, this is not going to work for me. I would definitely encourage to explore certain other things which are adjacent, but at the same time, you have certain skills that are very required for it too. So yeah, so initially I was just looking at AI or machine learning, so directly just the product roles. So for AI ML itself, so there you have like the product roles and you have the platform roles. I was doing both in my previous company. So it was a smaller scale company where you get like broader depth, broader breadth of work that you're doing. But I felt like I was just looking at the product side where I'm having direct impact for the customers, and that's probably what's just going to have this thing. But there is like so much thought process that also goes onto the platform side, and that's something that only not too many people actually understand. So you have to, I think, keep exploring like these different niches and like keep finding out like where things are moving and really working. And in the product side, also one more thing I realized was AI is going to be in everybody's product today, and where I can have an edge, where you considering my whole data experience is. In the on the platform side of things, where how you deliver AI to customers is where that's where I can build an edge, right? So these are all like reflections and learnings that are along the way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it also kind of like knowing the niche, it's not just for the purpose of like sticking to it or like going with that itself. It's understanding what made us come to this point of like, this is the pattern and this is my niche, this is the experience. And now given this, if the market is shifting or right, like Suvarsha said, if the company is investing in a certain vertical, which is like outside our scope, but knowing that quickly allows us to also understand, so where do we align at this point, right? And how we can best leverage that and also contribute back. I love that slide about like the whole niche part. It feels like a dedicated experiment or like, exercise in itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, it's all about just playing to your strengths at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have about half an hour left. I think what we can do quickly is go through a few questions to allow, that time. And then we can come back to, I'm sure like there are folks who are interested more into exploring, like diving deeper as well. So we can then quickly come back after the questions and come back to the product management part. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay, so just reading out loud. Let's take Shikha's question first. So her question is, once you know your niche for product manager interviews for PM job interviews, what skills or rounds do we prepare for? I know Sandhya touched upon it a little bit. So software engineering has a set of round like system design, behavioral coding interviews. What is something equivalent that you would think of for technical PM roles? And I think a quick, better way of rephrasing this would also be, are there any existing platforms, right, where people could go explore and learn about these different rounds of interviews that happen, that you know of, Suvarsha and Sandhya?
Mm,
Yeah, I could.
Sure.
I'll just touch upon a few things that were asked here. So, once you know your niche, what skill sets and rounds to prepare for, um, it really depends on the company and within the company, the team that you're interviewing for, right? Um, so large companies have standard process. Um, and most of the processes you can read it on Blind, you can read it on Glassdoor. They will give you questions, and for these large companies, even the recruiters kind of prepare you for success. So they will give you what kind of rounds will there be, what kind of questions will be asked. You as a candidate can ask the recruiter also of sample questions that will be asked for each round. But when it comes to startups, I have seen that startups do experiment the way they interview also. And each team within a startup is looking for a different skill set. So the best way there is to, one, again, leverage the recruiter who is talking to you, recruiter's expertise. Second is if you can find someone in the company who you can talk to get that information, that would be the best. Like that's what I did for Techion. But for Amazon, since the process is kind of established, all the online portals or YouTube videos will do the trick for you. But for the smaller companies, like Techion, I did interview two other startups. I did talk to people within the startup to get an idea of what the team is actually looking at and how do they go about testing.
Yeah.
So, hey, this is Shikha. It was my question. So I just wanted to ask, like, in the continuation of the previous slides as well, when you mentioned, like, see where the company is investing, and as we can see in the market currently, there is a lot of investment in AI, and fortunately, even my niche is very well the same. So for AI specifically, like as you said, like large companies have like set of rounds. So is it like we should focus more on like behavioral product sense and technical skills, like in the niche it can be, for example, like data and AI, maybe theory related questions that are asked, like, so that kind of like what are the broader set of rounds that we can expect? I do understand that we can ask recruiter, but then the timeline problem is there, right? Like if the recruiter says like in 1 week we have an interview, but you need some time to prepare. So like, you know, for preparation journey, what are all broader things to focus on in general?
Yeah. I think I can take this question because like of the whole the AI side of things, right? So one part that I would say is like, okay, within AI itself, there is like a lot more niches within AI itself, right? So in a broad way, you can say product platform. But again, the roles are all over the place. So when you say a product, it can be like inside a company that is just looking to leverage these foundation models and building their own product. And the platform side is there are like many companies like say Anyscale, I think all of these different platform companies who are supporting this AI development itself, right? So there's how do you do this development? Like all the foundation model companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, then all of these people are like building that platform for people that they can leverage. So when the platform roles is where you need to have like a really deep understanding of how the whole AI lifecycle works. And it's a little different from the machine learning lifecycle also. In fact, actually a lot different from the traditional machine learning lifecycle. And having a traditional machine learning as a base is a great way to understand AI. It's something that's necessary to understand AI lifecycle. But it's not necessary if you're a product PM for AI. If you're product in the product side AI PM, you can just use it. It can be a black box that you're just leveraging. So also, I think so. The questions vary in each of these different roles that you are going to be applying for. So when you're going for a platform, this thing, so you need to have a very strong sense of system design. Is something that becomes very important. But in the product side of the house, system design doesn't usually come up. You have to again just the product sense, analytical thinking. All these are the kind of questions that come up, and the behavioral side. Right? Behavioral side is probably similar across both, but those become more important. But on the platform side, the system design becomes like super important, that you're able to understand how the overall architecture is working, how the overall life cycle is working, how a person works in that particular zone. So I think, and then there is like one more very specific things inside machine learning, like you have to be like a search and recommendation PM. So that is a role that came up a lot for me. And then there are people who are like very specialized in just search and recommendation. That's it. And they've done search and recommendation across like multiple products or across multiple industries, but that's like another tiny skill within a niche inside a niche, right? So that's something that people have done. So I think there are like, even within that AI, when you say AI, it's like way too broad today. It'll become, because everybody has to leverage AI to be successful at the end of the day. So everyone is just trying to keep that I'm a Gen AI PM, but what is it within that you are good at, you are able to really have the strongest, have the strength in that, where you can leverage. So I think there are like a few who can be like good platform PMs. There are like a few who can be like very good search and recommendation PMs. But the general AI PM for many products itself, that I think many can be if they can just use that API and build a product with that API. So that becomes like a lot more generic. Um, yeah.
That answers my question. Thank you, Sandhya, so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question next, if I can. Yeah. Hi, all three of you. It's really some great information you have laid out there. Thank you. And my question was with respect to industry specific and the type of customers we just discussed on that slide. So I bring it's specific to my background, if I can proceed with.
Yeah.
So I bring experience in diverse domains. So I have telecom, I have media, and I have edtech to some extent after my master's, and also a little bit of retail as an internship experience. So when I have diverse domains like this, is it important for me to how do I highlight that I bring a strong background in a particular domain if I'm targeting a particular industry? That's one thing. And in case if if I'm also applying for healthcare, do I have a disadvantage there because I don't bring an experience in healthcare, or do companies still consider candidates seeing based on their product sense and knowledge, and still consider candidates, or will it be a disadvantage to me targeting for healthcare? That's one thing. And it's the same question with respect to B2B and B2C as well, because I bring B2B experience and a little bit of B2C. Will it be a downside for me if I'm only targeting B2C, or I want to understand this part with respect to industry specific and types of customers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want
Okay.
to say, Suvarsha?
Yeah, I'll just state that because if you see, I don't have any specific industry that I've worked on. I was in wellness, then I moved to horizontal, which catered to all industry. Then I was in automobile, now I'm in e-commerce. So it's been very different for me. The only place where I try to leverage my domain experience while talking to someone from the company or applying to the company is if the company is asking for it.
Okay.
If the JD says specifically that they prefer, and usually it's in the preferred qualification,
Yeah.
basic, then do try and highlight that as the main points on your resume, and just have your resume in order of relevant experience and push that experience up, because top-down approach is what everybody is reading, right? That's one. And second, with respect to B2B, B2C, I have seen that any company that is asking for B2C experience, like for example, DoorDash calls it out very clearly about people having
B2C.
experience.
Mhm.
If you do not have strong consumer experience, that's not the company that you should like
Target.
for, yeah, target, because
Yeah.
I did do it when the market was tough, and I had B2B to C experience in all of my companies, but that did not work for me,
Work.
right?
Okay.
So if the JD is asking for it, you can go ahead and apply, but like don't expect a lot out of it, because they are asking for consumer experience.
Experience. Okay.
So I would say go by the JD, given that
Okay.
market. But when the market is good and it opens up, then I have seen people being open
Getting it.
to these skills. Yeah.
Okay. Just so you mentioned about your experience navigating through diverse domains, what did you do differently to, get traction each time you're switching domains? Like,
So I early on did not want to get stuck to a domain. So B2B technical PM is the aspect that I've been leveraging. And even now, when I look for jobs, that's the aspect that I leverage. So you give me B2B, any B2B product under any domain, I'll be able to show that I'm an, is what I've also kind of shown on my resume.
okay. Another thing on AI, since I am like a recent graduate, although I bring a good amount of work experience back in India, but today AI is an ask in every job prospect, I believe. And what are some at least surface level AI skills that we can develop just to stand out in the market and also showcase it that yes, we do have hands-on on AI, if not for the in-depth machine learning language that you highlighted. If not for that, what are some surface level AI skills that we can develop in this process?
Yeah. So
We have a few more questions coming in. We want to be kind of like fair to everybody. So let's
Sure.
yeah. We definitely want to kind of like cover these. So let's ask them quick and then kind of like try to go through the chat as the questions come in. So
Sure.
go yeah.
yeah, can you
Thank
switch
you.
to the other gamma thing, Surabhi?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Okay.
And yeah, I think maybe we'll take the we can go through the other things quickly, and yeah, we'll take the questions like a few more at the end. It should not take more than 5 to 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. Um,
So yeah, so do you want to do this, Varsha, or the pros
Oh.
and cons?
Sure. I can get started. I'll move through it quickly. If people have questions on this, we can ask, because like there is a lot of chat about what product management is in general, and most of you I'm sure know about this, but like just that we'll take you through the top pros and cons. Pros is obviously, even though it looks small in number, the weight for each of the pro is really big. So take it with a pinch of salt, even though it looks like the cons are out there screaming at you. With pros, a biggest pro is your opportunity to shape products in the direction of the product, right? Especially when you're in a strategic role, or in a startup just starting up also, you could kind of weigh in on what you think needs to be built next and push for it with great conviction to see it happen, and it's very, very rewarding. So this is a big pro for whoever loves building and delivering, right? It is a challenging role. It does include a lot of project management aspect of it, but also like thinking of it strategically, looking at the market, doing a bunch of analytics, trying to understand what worked, what did not work, A/B testing if you can, also looking at other aspects that we spoke about in the product overview is kind of a lot to do for a single person. So you're continuously challenged and mostly satisfied with what you're doing. So that is a big pro here. Cross-functional skill sets. As a product manager, I have learned how the sales team operates. I have learned how the customer team operates. I have learned details of what the marketing team does, why, what, when, how do they measure success, etc. Apart from that, I've also learned a lot of UX portion of it and a little bit of engineering, since we're talking about um, different pros and cons of each solution with the engineering team. So you are learning a lot of different skills on the go, right? So that's a big plus. Easier transition into leadership positions because you know a lot of these different skills, and also because you know the direction and the strategy of the company, and you're working along those lines to push a product in that direction also. So you're in tune with what the leadership does in general, and it's easier for you to transition into leadership positions. These are like big pros of product management. Now, coming to cons, you do have to influence everybody around you, all the stakeholders that we spoke about earlier, without them reporting to you. So it does involve a lot of talking, building personal connections, etc., for you to even do that, right? Like earn respect. So that's a difficult part of it, and nobody reports to you, but you still have to influence them. So it's kind of a con, especially like if you're not really the one who loves talking, you're an introverted person, you still have to push yourself to go out and do this. The second one is there is a lot of project management and stakeholder management that is involved, right? It's not all about thinking about strategy, looking at the UX, talking to engineering, and then building it. There's a lot of sending a mail, setting up tasks, setting up post-release analysis, and talking to sales, looking at if they're finished the tasks that you have at hand. Are they giving you the metrics that you need? And then setting up also that there's a lot of project management that goes around that you have to initiate, because if you haven't initiated, then your product is falling behind. So you do end up taking additional things on your plate with respect to project management that comes. A few companies do have project counterparts to help you with this, a few don't. So the ones that don't, it falls on the product manager. The next one is similar to that. If there are any tasks that fall in the gray area, that's not belonging to engineers or belongs to UX designers. One good example is escalating on any other team that you need help from, right? Like it doesn't fall under anyone's plate. So like you'll have to take up the task of doing that. So there are tasks in the gray area that you'll have to take up to make your product successful. The next one is if there's a huge launch that goes really well, the entire team is celebrated. But if it does not, then you are held responsible for why it didn't happen and why you didn't as a product manager. bring it up earlier. So it does happen in real life, and so you need to be ready to accept this portion of it. Setbacks will fall on you. You will have to take responsibility of it when it comes. The last one is, I think what Sandhya was touching upon earlier. It's very, very hard to prove a couple of skills by just speaking about them or telling a story about the past experiences and then convincing the interviewers that you could do it, that you do have great product sense, even though the question they've asked in the interview, you have no idea about the product space or anything. You're just navigating about it in the interview itself. It's quite challenging. It is difficult, but that's something that comes with a lot of prep. So we've added it in the cons for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Sandhya?
Yeah, I think these intangible skills, so sometimes there are PMs who might not be like someone who takes the whole team across, who are testing, who are taking across, but they might be a lot more good at showcasing certain skills, while you're not. So at the end of the day, if you're building it, then it comes from a more authentic place. When you have built built a muscle to ensure that you're delivering successful products, and as you go higher up, it will start showing. In the earlier, especially in the earlier career stage, that's when these intangible skills are harder to prove. But as you grow more, I think doing it more authentically, doing it with authenticity is what's going to make the cut. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I would want to end this slide. And we'll quickly go through the next slide of like just the big tech, like how things are very different in different environments.
Yeah. I think what we can do, since we have, so technically we have about 10 minutes, but I know you have some really great insights about like big tech versus startup and also the role transition part.
And
Do
maybe
we,
just a role transition, and this one we can do because a lot of questions are around role transition.
yeah. I'm gonna take a couple of minutes going through quick announcements for folks who are interested in staying in touch for future events. And then we can come back and kind of like go through the slides, also answer like, the further questions we had. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. We still have like, the couple of very important slides, and I personally want to actually go through understanding all of that part. Real quick thing. So for folks who are interested in staying in touch with us and happy to actually this was not for the group picture. Happy to kind of like share your insights with us. We want to know, how did you hear about us? So we keep making sure that we are communicating through the right channels in future. Do let us know, where are you joining from today? How did you hear about this? Waiting for a few more seconds. I noticed so many colors are similar. All right. So it sounds like there is kind of like a good mix of coming from different places. Meetup, social media, WhatsApp seems to be kind of like the trend. I think we'll continue on moving forward as well. And I pasted in the chat to be consistently aware of the future initiatives we are starting, and also hear about when any mentors join us, and if they decide to, or if any kind of like product or service expertise decide to partner with Vahati. If you are interested in knowing about the future benefits, please join us via our newsletter. And also, if you are interested in staying in touch for the future, like in person as well as outside, kind of like the virtual events, there is another great way of staying in touch with us. First of all, the next event that's happening is around entrepreneurship. So it falls again under like similar track as the PM career track we are talking about. And in that event, we will dive deeper into, as a non entrepreneur and as a non product manager person, how Wahati's inception itself happened and how it came to fruition, how we built a team about it, and all the realities of like, an early stage startup. For anyone who's interested, please click on this link, and the first 40 entries are free of cost. So if you join today, it is absolutely free of charge. I'll also share this link in the chat later. But I'm assuming that you are able to click on this. I think so. Yeah. Okay. And the next quick announcement: if you want to stay in touch with us for any future events, the link in the link tree takes you to a comprehensive list of what Wahati offers right now. So there is a recording of our flagship conference that just happened a couple of weeks ago. And if you want to request those recordings free of charge, there's an option to do that. If you're interested in future events and also like getting involved, there is also a form for you to fill up. Through this form, you also get to tell us what other things you would be interested in, like, your ideas of what are you looking for currently. So please do fill in that form as well. For those who are interested, we also have this WhatsApp chat room. This is mostly for the purpose of keeping people updated on the ongoing events that are happening again. So these are just a few ways to stay in touch. The link tree is kind of like an exhaustive combination. And as always, if you just visit our website, the link get involved again takes you to that same link tree. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Gama, so Sandhya and Suvarsha can continue on.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
this awesome. So I think this is always a question that people keep having, like how is life like in a startup versus big tech, and where do I want to be in? And I think at the end of the day, it depends on your choice and what really resonates with you. But we just wanted to lay out what are the different factors that consider and where you would want to be at, right? So definitely in a smaller company is the big fish in a small pond versus a small fish in a big pond. That's essentially what we are talking about. But do you want high visibility and larger piece like early on? Like, do you want, or do you just want like that reach and customer growth? So I think when just the sheer number of data centers who are using my platform or who I work with, right? In PayPal, it's like more than like 6,000 plus data centers that I'm working with. But in my previous company, it was 2025. I had like a way to deeply understand how they work. But here is where I get the scale to make that impact. So like what do you really care about? What do you want to really learn, right? So and again, from a career growth perspective, I think the startups, so if the company is growing really well, if you're in the right place at the right time, so the way Suvarsha was telling, like it need not just be a startup, if it's like any new initiatives where there's funding going within your company itself, so then it will start becoming like a directly proportional to the growth of that. Like you can escalate, you can speed up certain learning curve, you can speed up your career growth as a result of that. And but again, if you go for a big company with a more established product, it is going to be a lot more slow and steady. And compensation varies. That becomes very important for all of us. So in a startup, like it's base plus equity. The equity is mostly on paper. So it's pretty much just the base that you're thinking about. And then there is like the bonus stock options. I think that's something that's like a reality that we have to live with. So I might want to have like a great career growth, but again, right now I would also think about like the visa stability and the compensation for the current phase. Like because I've done some of it, I was like a lot more risk taking when I was back in India. But yeah, I think over here I have like certain other realities that I have to encounter. So I think we just kept a few here. I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. Some of it is like straightforward, but yeah, you pick your this one, and you pick what really works for you and which kind of environment that you want to be in, right? Yeah. Anything you want to add, Suvarsha?
No, I think we're good, and it's kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, if people have questions, we can answer them in the mentoring session.
Yeah. And next, I think the final slide, maybe that's what.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, career transition. Yeah, I think this is something that we were touching upon earlier. Since if you're already in the industry, right, so you can definitely play to your strengths, domain-specific roles, and then internal. So these are, I think we talked about like all the different ways that's possible, but at the end of the day, it just boils down to these three. That Suvarsha and I, we were debating like what are the different ways that people have transitioned careers, people have met. So basically, it's about playing to your strengths or building your strengths and then demonstrating them at the end of the day. So if you are in a different profession, like a lot of side projects, volunteering that you can end up doing, and eventually move to that particular role within your within your company, or as if you're looking out for new jobs, you can do that. But just having that portfolio, and that is something that's becoming even more mandatory, even though these skills are intangible with all these tools out there, that's becoming a lot more mandatory. Being able to showcase those side projects or being able to showcase that volunteering, like in at the end of the day, what is the person really looking for, right? So do they have those skills to actually come in and do this, and are they better than all the 100 people who are also applying? So can you make those standout projects? So if you have already done that, if you're able to show tangible experience either through your work or through any of these side projects, that is something that can really resonate. Yeah, so pick your niche, do like very good side projects and volunteering projects there if you're looking for a transition. Or otherwise, it's like the domain and internal strengths that you can play with.
Yeah. Just something to add here for most of us who are in the US, right? Like for internal transition, given the tough job market now, I wouldn't shy away from looking at roles that I was already an expert in in companies that allow or are easy on internal transitions, because that's one way you can crack into PM in this tough job market if you do not have any PM experience, and neither the first domain specific or side projects are working for you. Do not shy away from doing what you've already done and good at, and then find your path internally. This really works.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you're going for something brand new right now, this might not be the best time just being there. Yeah. The final slide, probably that's where we even talk about some of that. If you can move on to the next slide. Yeah, I think this was the current job market that we are talking about. So, yeah, I think what the where you even get calls in the first place is when you can demonstrate that 90th percentile alignment, right? If you are even in the 80th, it's not going to work. 90th, 95th, that's where like the top 5 percentile, the top 10 percentile, that's when you're even going to get a call back. And that's what has also, I think, worked with me, like being able to figure out that place where I can get a call back. So that took me, like when I was navigating my layoffs, the first 1 month just took me for figuring out where that niche is, and then being able to then I started getting like a lot of calls once I was able to figure that out. Like I was being able to be very focused, and I started getting a lot of callbacks there. Yeah, I think so. That is one huge thing, and then the AI's impact itself. I think we've been touching upon at different points, but where AI really comes in is so people say that it's going to replace product managers overall, but what AI is really doing is it's just doing the product delivery. It's easing out certain aspects like project management. It's easing out certain aspects of parsing the kind of customer feedback, but it's not helping in the main customer knowledge, like building that whole thing itself. Like how do you build that whole product discovery process? That is something that AI can just be a great assistant with, and it can speed things up. and the time to market is getting sped up, but it's not really replacing product management. But what's also happening is that middle management is slowly starting to go away. It's not immediately happening in every company out there, every industry out there, but the middle management, if you're really going to be future ready, you just want to be first a very strong ICPM. So middle management, at the end of the day, the directors and this one, so it's going to be like that person who can be like a great mentor for you. It's just a mentorship that's going to be important, but otherwise there's no managing projects, there's none of that. A lot of that is going to go away, and there will probably be smaller teams. I've started to see that a little bit in our own orgs, because engineers start to have like these code pals, code pilots, and all these things. So there are probably going to be the pods are going to become smaller, shrinker. That's kind of the impact that we see. And so it will probably be just that one designer, and maybe there were like 5-6 engineers today, but it's going to be just 2 or 3 engineers eventually. So I think that's kind of how it's looking, and most of the experts out there also seem to be resonating with that particular feedback. And and professional growth. Do you want to take that, Suvarsha?
I think we've spoken about it and the importance even on the chat. Like, it's very, very important to keep gauging yourself as to where you are in each of these areas. As you grow, it's very important to move from the 80th to the 85th percentile to the 90th. And it's important to strategically think which of these areas do you want to get good at. It is difficult to move the needle on all of these significantly every year. So that's an aspect of self-development, career development that you'll have to keep doing by yourself. Adaptation of new technology is very, very important, especially for the aspect that we just spoke about. There is a rise of principal PMs. If you want to be a stronger principal PM and do a bunch of things in a shorter span of time, you will have to learn how to do it for yourself, if not for the company. Negotiation, this is an important aspect that, Sandhya, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So I think being like a data scientist is one of the projects I did even in my master's, was understanding the gender gap in pay. And what I actually, even from all the levels FYI data, is that the gender gap comes especially in the mid career. That's when the gap really starts showing. And the early career, like most of us are starting out probably on the same foot. We are good. I think everyone is still learning skills, but I think that's where it starts showing like how you are negotiating. How can you just ask, right? I think even that asking doesn't really come more naturally. I think there are also men here, but when I think stereotypes are there for a reason. So 80% women are probably 20% men are also this one, but that's where when you look at the average median salaries, especially in stocks and all of these, that you have to start thinking about. So so just make sure that that's a muscle that you need to build. I'm also slowly learning. I know I haven't really asked in my past, but I'm learning like basically how you can be more open about confidently ask for a difference. So now I'm like, okay, I think probably I'm learning a little more. I'm still hesitant, but I think slightly better. I think I was able to get like a 30%, or I think in my previous jobs, I was able to manage about 40 to 50% raise in my base. Even in this market, I was able to get like almost like a 30 to 35% raise in my from my previous salary, even though it was like a super tough economy. But this is something that I'm learning. And later I felt like, okay, I could have actually pushed it a little more, but yeah, you're always going to be having that feeling. But I was like, just be grateful that you're able to get this.
I think it's actually very important. I remember even Nitya Gupta touched upon this in our conference, right? So I know like we are going to send out the recordings from that conference like on Monday, but she herself called out very specifically that she herself has recruited so many people, and she was like, I can't say it how many times it's important, but like women don't ask. Please ask, because if you don't, then the other person's not going to like, can't
Give it,
find you. Yeah. So I feel like we should do another session just for that aspect and almost like a mock trial, something, we'll definitely keep bringing those deep sessions because it's something not many people talk about, but it affects everybody, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
you start feeling lesser, this and lesser valued and all of that once you learn. And sometimes I feel like these HRs, I mean, this culture of not knowing what the other person is making is not always the best. Yeah.
I think levels.fii was a first eye opener for me, literally, even for, let's say, a company to another company transfer, right? Just knowing location wise and sort of like role wise, what could be the possibility versus what I thought in my mind, because we are conditioned the way we are operating in like our environment. Absolutely, I agree with you. um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think yeah, so we wanted to for all the people who can be like a part of Vati and Vati Circle. So we want to offer like free mentorship. Like so, I think there's like a lot of people preparing for interviews, so free resume reviews, mock interviews that we want to do with all of you guys who are here. This one, so yeah, so Surbi, yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'll give it away to you. How you want to do that?
Definitely. So first of all, I want to thank both Sandhya and Suvarsha for not just sharing your journeys, but like you went a step ahead of that and you were sort of like clearly laying out the niche and the different aspects to consider, right? For someone like me, and I'm sure like a lot of other people on the call, who is still trying to navigate and learn, understand on top of the current job economy or like understanding where do I align based on the experience. I think it's so important to have that sounding board who actually has done it and like knows right the realities. I want to especially thank on that aspect, and I also agree with you having mentors who are like super experienced and at that level of like looking at the long term career aspect, very important. At the same time, for navigating the current challenges we do, it's very important to connect with someone who's kind of like a step ahead of you and knows exactly what the pain point is or what the concerns might be in people's mind. So that's another very important reason why we keep connecting with experts and mentors who are at every stage, in their career. And for folks on the call, Suvarsha and Sandhya have both very graciously sort of like opened up their top mentorship for Bhati Circle members. I'll quickly go over what Bhati Circle membership is and how you can be a part of it. If you are not part of Bhati Circle members, I think they still have like their top mate offerings open to everybody. For the month of April exclusively, anyone from Vahati circles wanting to connect with them, they are offering free mentorship and like their time and guidance for us. And if you are interested in applying for Vahati circle membership, give me 1 second. I'm just going to show it real quick on here. So if you go to our Linktree link that I have posted on the chat, just look at Vahati_NPO on Linktree, right? And if you fill in this form to stay in touch with us, you have an option to mention whether you're interested in Vahati Circle membership. If you are, one of our team members will get back to you, get you added, and you get to pick one of the benefits we have ongoing at this time. The benefits previously included and still are part of a free consultation session with a relationship coach, or let's say free yoga sessions or free consultation with personal trainers in Seattle. Some of them are virtual, so open to everybody. So like Sandhya and Suvarsha added a benefit today, which is mentorship for Vati Circle members. And this is just like agnostic to location. If you're interested, do get in touch with us. If you also join the WhatsApp chat room, we will post the information about Vati Circle members even in the WhatsApp chat room. I'm going to paste this link again in our Zoom link. And going back to, if you are not part of Bhati Circle membership, but if you want to apply and sort of like, join the circle for the entire month of April, they are offering their mentorship for free of charge. And besides that, I think beyond April, Sandhya and Suvarsha, if I understand, like even currently, your normal TopMate offerings are still in place, right? Like the mentorship part. So thanks for that. And with that, I want to pause and kind of like go back to the questions we had before from Zoom.
Yeah, just a follow up here in case like either of us are booked because I just offer 3-4 slots a month and it gets booked pretty soon. So you can DM me. I will check if you're part of the member group with Surabhi and then send you a invite separately. So you can DM me on LinkedIn if you don't find any slots on TopMate. This is